Welcome to this conversation platform powered by the Christian Churches Monitoring Group, CCMG. Now, this podcast is your space where you get informed, balanced, and engaging discussions around key electoral, governance, and democratic issues that are shaping our country. And our aim is to simplify complex constitutional and electoral processes that encourage peaceful participation but also promote democratic accountability. This is the Observers Chair. You're welcome, and I'm Chivesa Wera. Here on the podcast, we say it's your front row seat to the future of Zambia's democracy. And my first guest today, Peter. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, Peter, who are you?
Interesting. Well, I love sports. I watch soccer. I mean, I've seen fun, and Arsenal is on their way to winning a double. First time in history, so that sounds a little interesting for us. I also do a bit of running, though not all the time, but I think it's a habit that I've recently picked up.
Okay. Um, Professionally?
Wow. Okay, so from the professional side, I am the program director for the Christian Churches Monitoring Group. I'm an advocate of good governance and human rights, so most of the work that I do revolves around that. I also belong to a number of organizations such as Transparency International Zambia and the Bloggers in Zambia, where I contribute in terms of good governance and other experiences within the realm of governance.
Okay, quite some resource. Well, just for me to establish that we will be having a very good, chat, you and I. Um, Shima, fork or hands?
Hands.
Okay, yeah, if you're definitely eating shima with hands, then you can be trusted. So we're going to trust your responses. But tell me, before we go into the nitty gritties of things, if you were not into election observation, um, what would you be doing?
Well, interesting because I think the first um, thing that I did post school was to study a bit of IT. So I think that's where I'll be. I've also worked around governance issues, but outside of elections. But really, elections have been part of my um life. Like I've done this work, so it's kind of a part of me.
So you don't see yourself, you wouldn't
Well,
want to do
I could have been a pilot maybe.
or you'd still be in IT, but still doing election related.
Could be.
Okay. What is one thing that you know? I mean, you're the program's director, so meaning you lead people. What is the one thing that um, your colleagues, possibly you not obviously say about you? I don't know. It could be your work style or how you talk or how you issue instructions. But what is the one thing that um, I hope he doesn't take them by surprise. You know when you have a nickname for the director and you think he doesn't know, then he does.
I hope not. I hope that's not the case with me. But I think um, tough but fair, and I think I am also approachable. I know I won't get away with this one, but it's approachable. But that's what I.
So when they say tough but fair, um, how do you how do you describe that? Or how do you break down that? How do you hear it when you hear that about yourself? What do you think that says about you? Because as you were saying it, I saw you were smiling. So I take it you take it as a positive somehow.
So tough but fair in the sense that we need to get things done. So I think the team understands that. But also fair in that everybody deserves a chance of sorts. So we also have to strike that balance. You know, there are things that are outside of our control, and so we need to be cognizant of that, even if we want to be tough. So fair in that sense, but tough that we need to get things done.
Brilliant. What does CCMG do? Um, just by face value, Christian churches monitoring group? Do you get times when people mistake you for a congregation?
Yeah, sure. Actually, some people think I actually work for the church directly. Uh, and I could, or maybe I do, but excuse me. For CCMG, this is an institution or an organization that works around election issues, as the name might also suggest, and it's a consortium of three faith-based organizations that decided to come together to contribute to the good governance of this country through election and electoral process monitoring. So we look at various aspects of the process. That is also from the realization that elections are not an event, rather a process. So you see us active in advocacy for reforms. You see us active in voter registration, boundary delimitation, and many other human rights and governance related aspects.
That sounds like a lot of work. Are you just roughly able to tell us what CCMG looks like in terms of not necessarily structure, but in terms of size? How do you achieve all that?
Well, we have a very good staff complement. The good part about CCMG is that it's predominantly young people. So there's quite a lot of innovation. And so that, makes the work very, very easy. There's a lot of energy in the team. And so we find ourselves achieving most of the things that we've achieved because there's a lot of energy. I don't think it's really about the size in terms of number, but it's actually how the team is able to coordinate and work together to achieve its goals.
Okay. Um, I just beg for your patience. The reason why I'm possibly just taking a bit of time in understanding the human face of this institution, CCMG, is just for us to appreciate um, the the human behind this noble large task that happens. We see it on face value that whatever it is, whether it's the PVT, whether it's the election reports, and that's really comes out technical, but we have people behind that from what level of the community to which level of the office. If you get my
Right. Okay. So most of our work is actually done by a lot of volunteers. If you look at it from the community level, because election monitoring requires that you are present, for example, in the polling station. So there's a team of election monitors or observers that we work with, and whose dedication has really been remarkable and valuable for our end products. After that level, you have provincial coordinators who, of course, play a significant role in ensuring that everybody is in place and everything that we need is all in place. Then we have, you know, um, the people in the directorate, such as the program director, who of course is only the face of the organization, but really and truly, the work is done behind the scenes by the people on the ground who are the election monitors and the provincial coordinators.
Okay, all right. I think we get the picture. It's actually very, very clear now. Um, Maybe let's just get into a bit of now the detail of the speciality of not only your office but CCMG as an institution. I know that on the 15th of May, the National Assembly of Zambia announced that Parliament had been dissolved. Now, according to our constitution, Parliament must be dissolved 90 days before the general election. So 15th passed, that important day passed. What happens immediately after the dissolution of Parliament?
So dissolution of parliament marks a significant milestone in the electoral process in our country, especially at this particular time, because this is an indication that now all the seats in National Assembly are vacant. For example, the seats at council level are vacant. There is no mayor anymore. So you basically now just have a president. And even with the president, he only has a certain level of power that, there are certain things they cannot do. For example, cannot make new appointments and things like that. So this is an important time that then people begin to prepare, to run for office in the general election. So this is at the height of election preparations, because post that, then you see the election commission, for example, undertaking the candidate nomination processes, but also it means that political parties would have done their part in terms of trying to do their own internal party primaries to identify candidates for the election period.
One wonder that since you say, well, the president is the only one now that can exercise his duties to an extent, what happens now in the constituencies? Um, can MPs still respond to particular issues in their constituencies? Are they able to? It might not be necessarily executing their duties in full, but it's work in motion for the members of parliament before the 15th. There are others that had projects that possibly were running um, before that were in motion by 50 when parliament is dissolved. Is it illegal for me as an MP to still attend to some of those issues and finished issues before the dissolution of parliament? I just wanted to understand at MP level what's happening.
Oh, that's a very interesting question, and I'll attempt to answer it the best way I can. So there is no member of parliament at the time of dissolution of parliament, right? So even when a member of parliament or a former member of parliament for a particular constituency is undertaking community projects out of their own pocket, for example, that will just be that. So it might be seen as trying to get an edge over another competitor. But if there were any projects that were advocated for by a member of parliament that are being undertaken by central government, there is no reason for such projects to stop because they are not as a result of a member of parliament. And interesting, Chiwesa, that you mentioned that a member of parliament fulfilling their duties. Well, doing community projects may not in itself completely be the role of a member of parliament. The member of parliament has only one role and one role only. One, to represent the people of that constituency. And second, I mentioned one. Can I add one more?
Yes.
Okay. So the other responsibility is to make laws in National Assembly. So only those two things. Represent your people, meaning if they ask for a road, go to to central government, advocate for a road for your people, and if there's laws that are being made, go back to your people, ask them what that law should look like. Should it be passed in its form or should it be amended? And that's what the member of parliament does. Anything else is out of their own goodwill as a person.
Okay, now I want us to move into understanding the electoral environment, but maybe before I delve into that, do you think that there's enough understanding and information in the communities to understand with the constituencies to understand what you've just explained? So there's a reason why they triggered that question, because so you've explained it, it's understood. Um, do the people that are represented by these now former MPs actually understand that, look, now Honorable Chiwesan is fired? Of course not, but relieved of their duties. And even if you can still see them, because I know that you have explained what a member of parliament actually does, what their duties. We've seen those challenges at community level that sometimes they expect them to support a funeral, things that they should be going to the councillor for, they're going to the member of parliament. In dealing with that after the dissolution of parliament, I was just trying to imagine the pains at which the former MPs are at when it's not everybody that will understand what you've just explained. That, look, my hands are tied now. I cannot, lest I'm, misunderstood.
Yeah. So I was at this meeting and somebody raised their question, says, um, there's a perception out there that members of parliament or elected leaders change when they are elected into office, right? That before that they could be good to the community, they answer phones, but once elected, then they stop doing that. Okay. And why do they do that? It's because they were not honest with the electorate in the first place. They told the electorate, we are going to build you a hospital, but did not tell the electorate that we are going to build you a hospital through lobbying government to do that. So the expectation raised in the electorate is that this member of parliament has money that they are going to pay for. When you look at the bursaries now that the government introduced, I think it's from the background that the member of parliament assumed the role of paying school fees for certain, school-going children, with the hope that then they can create this good name in their community and be elected. But post being elected, this member of parliament goes into government, perhaps is a government member of parliament, is given a ministerial position, and they also serve as members of certain parliamentary committees, meaning that in a year, maybe the member of parliament will only go to their constituency once. And so this already creates agitation in the community because the MP has neglected his two functions that I mentioned. One is to represent the community, and secondly is to legislate. But now, if they are given additional responsibilities, be a minister, belong to this committee, they have very little time and no connection with the people. And so this is why the people out there say we only see our ministers once every 5 years. And in those 5 years, they are always coming back to name. And if you met them on the road, somewhere near Mandalay, they would never dare to kneel because in any case, they're actually in a VX with aircon and they probably forgot who they were needing, who they knelt before when they needed it. So this is the reality that, of course, communities need to begin to appreciate that there are certain functions of a member of parliament that we think they are secondary to what he actually is supposed to be doing.
Right. So from the electoral perspective, what does this dissolution mean? Because if there is this, if the Constitution outrightly says 90 days to the general election, I take it should have something to do with, the upcoming election. So from an electoral perspective, what does this mean?
So dissolution of parliament 90 days before an election is meant to serve a number of things. One is to allow for a formal transition of the incumbents, like now you are no longer in government, so there's that transition so that you level the playing field, as it were, right, particularly for members of parliament and local councils, because we know that the president still enjoys incumbency. They are still entitled to use government resources for their campaign. So the 90 days before that then tries to create that level playing field. But interestingly, something that I discovered very recently is that our constitution defined, or the Electoral Process Act had defined a campaign period to be a period of 90 days or 3 months before an election. So ideally, the 90 days was meant to be a campaign period. But I think if you look at the recent amendment, it recognizes that there is no way you can attend 90-day campaign period when parliament dissolves 90 days before election, because there are other processes that need to precede the campaign period.
Right.
So by and large, the larger part of this dissolution period, or the 90-day dissolution, is to give room for candidates to canvass, to engage electorates and get some interest from citizens so that they can be able to vote for them. Part of it is also to allow the commission then to administer processes such as the nomination process in readiness for an election.
Okay, so does this signal that Zambia has entered the election period? Can we safely say we've entered the election period?
We actually have. So because when you look at, again, the campaign is as soon as you file your nomination, then you are good to go and start campaigning. Only that those that will file in a week later who start their campaigns a week later than others.
Oh, okay. Um, so let's talk about the changes that, what usually changes in the political environment once we see our parliament dissolved.
What changes is that, first of all, we do not have the incumbency. Take for example, when there is a by-election, we've noticed that the government, for example, may have a number of its ministers, support a particular candidate in a by-election. But in a general election, you don't see that because there is no minister, and so it tries also to minimize the use of state resources for political activity. So that is very significant when you look at it from the ruling party point of view. But in terms of the political actors in general, this is where and we hope we don't get to notice this. This is where you see a lot of inducement of voters, where you are telling voters to say, you vote for me so that I can create a road for you. If you don't do that, then you remain poor.
We see a lot of the kneeling taking place.
We see a lot of the kneeling taking place. We see a lot of people now abusing the church, the pulpit as it were. And I see them, visit places that they've never gone to. You see them hanging out with my grandmother and all those people in the village, all in the name of trying to canvass for votes. I mean, that is not an offense in itself. It's allowed, except there are other things that we need to pay attention to. Things like intimidation of voters, violence against women, which is quite huge, use of hate speech and all that. So those are some of the things that we might be watching out for. We hope that we don't get to that stage, that the 2026 will be a good election. But as history has shown and as trends have indicated, these are things that we need to watch out for.
That's actually where I was going, because I wanted to ask you that, should citizens expect degrees to be going high to we see the temperatures in the environment?
But we'll wait and see. And the beauty about the general election is that it keeps people busy. But we've also seen, like I've said, from history, that even in a general election environment, there's been a lot of politically motivated violence, a lot of tension among political parties. But I think this is where the role of different actors come in, trying to ensure that that environment remains, calm and peaceful. We have also seen that it is during this time that perhaps our colleagues from the Zambia police also mishandle certain situations and they escalate, and you find accusations of unprofessional conduct from law enforcers. So that is from the part or from the history books. But we don't know what the 2016 general election holds.
Okay, so I take it you say what you're saying with the background, of course, speaking on the authority of the work that CCMG is doing. What are some of the early warning signs of this tension that we're talking about, the rise in temperature in terms of the electoral environment? That's in line now with, for CCMG.
So I think for the very first time, we're going to see a lot of tension emanating from the way that the law reforms and institutional reforms have been handled. There are a number of changes that many political parties and actors have questioned in terms of motive. And the most famous one and most talked about is the requirement for the Secretary General of a party, for example, to sign an adoption certificate, whereas political parties have argued that some of them do not have Secretary General in their structure. So why should the law then insist on this particular wording of the law? And many other things. So according to political parties, that translates into systematic exclusion. There've also been instances where internal party issues have been dealt with by the courts of law, and looking at how the court has taken time to address some of these issues. Those are issues that might might arise in terms of discontentment from the political parties and any political actors. But beyond that, we also see that any election is a contest, and 2021, 2026 may not be unique to any other, and that in a contest you have conflicts. But I think it will be important to see how effective structures within the country, such as the conflict management committees, will be in dealing with these issues, but also if the courts of law will also rise to the occasion to be able to address some of the issues. So that's what we see as CCMG in terms of what the landscape entails.
I'd like us to talk about. I know we've now dealt with how that the policymakers themselves have what that means with the dissolution. Let's come down to citizens and public expectations. I mean, part of the reason why we have this platform is really for the citizens to understand some of these things that are seemingly complex and technical. What should be their expectation now between now and the general election?
So, citizens have always had a role deal and from all this issue of politics, because the politician out there may not be as honest as they should be with the electorate. And then the electorate also does not have sufficient information, or there is information, but like you said, it's technical information. For example, one of the things that will happen now is that, you know, um, candidates will go to voters and give them money to say, vote for me on election day. And in turn, I'll give you this much. So that in itself is an offense. And the offense is two-way. Both the person that is accepting the money and the person that is offering the money. So in that instance rather, both the candidate and the electorate of the citizen are committing an offense.
Not to intercept you. That's very interesting because we have seen
Yeah.
um, aspirants go on the platform and actually tell the people, if they give you the money, get the money, eat it. If they give you the mini meal, jani unga wasawavotena. And here you are saying that's illegal.
Yes.
How is me as a candidate telling people on television that if they give you money, get the money, just don't vote for them? How is that not an illegality? I mean, I had no idea that that what was illegal in the sense. So it just called my way to say that.
Yeah. So both the person that is offering to buy, or the person giving a gift, and the person receiving. Remember, bribe is about, or corruption is about both the person being corrupted and the corrupted. So none of you, it's not either that get away with the issue. In actual sense, it's both that should be arrested. And let me use an example of a voter card, for example. Somebody can come and offer, say, give me your voter's card and I'll give you 500 kwacha. The reason they're doing that is that they don't want you to go and vote on election day. And in their head, if you don't go to vote on election day, probably the number of the turnout will be low and may give them an advantage. But that is an offense, both in the electoral laws, but also in terms of the regulation that governs the voter registration. So in that instance, a person offering to buy or seemingly or just giving an indication that they want to offer to buy, this you're already creating an offense. But a person who also sells that card, remember that any documentation that is issued to you, your NRC is not yours. It's government property. Your voter's card is not yours. It's government property. So you're given that because it facilitates your right, and therefore you offering to sell to buy, you are committing an offense. And the penalties are quite interesting when you look at the Electoral Process Act. You can actually go in for not less than 2 years. So, but imagine being arrested for 1 and 6 months, 1 year, 6 months, and for offering to buy a card at 50 kwacha. So, I mean, this is the kind of information that then communities should have that, look, even a 50 kwacha, a 5 kwacha, a 2 kwacha is enough to get you arrested or for you to be incarcerated if convicted to a period not exceeding 2 years. 1 year, 8 months is a long time over a 2 kwacha.
Wow. So you talked about, in our initial, as we were chatting, some of the concerns that you have as CCMG. What are the responsibilities? First of all, I want to ask a two-in-one question. The responsibilities that political parties have, but also the role that citizens need or must play in ensuring that we have a peaceful election.
Oh, that's a loaded, two loaded questions. And so from rights comes responsibility. So much as we have the right to assemble, we have the right to association, we also have responsibilities. You know that rights are not absolute. So from the part of citizens, I think we expect responsibility in terms of the citizens not being engaged in violence. You know, there's been a lot of talk about youths being the perpetrators of violence and they are easily bought. We don't know whether these are facts, but I think if that were true, then they need to be responsible enough and not to engage in that. But for political parties themselves, then it's to, desist from acts that contravene the electoral laws, things like, arming supporters with offensive weapons, which are contrary to some sections of the law, particularly the State Security Act and many other laws. So from the political parties, it's an issue of being issue based. Just campaign normally. Do not engage in these vices. We're going to have a great election.
But speaking of voter education, um, how important is it? Okay, it is important really at this particular time, but I just want you to emphasize on that.
Voter education is very, very important. And in fact, this is the reason perhaps why certain jurisdictions have a component of civic education within their education curriculum because it's not only about the voter, it's also about the rights. So the rights are more of the civic responsibility. And so that is where we need to also begin to think about this. How do we um, make our education, our voter education, civic education more meaningful? How can you make it a bit playful so that it's attractive and people can then engage? I was very disappointed and it was also very funny. I went to this school, I'll not name the school and the town, and I saw posters and they were talking about the rights and responsibilities of a citizen, and half of them were not complete and were mostly untrue. And I realized that if our children are getting this from the secondary school, they go out there probably with this. So we need to really see how we then build within our education curriculum a component of civic and voter education right from an early stage so that as people are of age, they understand their responsibilities as a voter, but also that they can engage meaningfully in the governance conversations.
Okay, I've had a great chat.
Have you?
And I think I've learned a lot, and quite easy for me to understand. I was just crossing my fingers. I hope he doesn't get all Article 60, whatever. And oh yeah, I was just wondering how much.
I had to spare you from that.
But also, I'm grateful for our viewers really because that's the intention of this, podcast to just try and simplify, these complex jargons and processes that we have. I'm getting tempted that before I let you go, I sort of just I know I don't want to play a game, but I'm very curious. Like at the random and quickest moment, if somebody said something to you, like what would be your first answer? What's the quick answer that you have? I would appreciate one word, but it's okay if it's two or three. So I'm just gonna make a statement to you.
Problem with
Statement to you.
this way, we have to explain because it involves continue the law and all that. But I hope
Right. So that will probably make it even more, challenging for you because as much as you really want to explain, you have to give me the quickest explanation that you can give to my statement. Okay. I want one word that can describe Zambia's democracy.
Can I give you 2 words? I promise it's not a statement.
Okay.
Cracked but not broken.
Debate or campaign rally.
Debate.
Election observation in rural area or urban area.
I experienced elections in Thailand, so rural area.
Most stressful election day moment.
2 moments. Reporting at 05 a.m. and also the announcement of results. Very stressful.
If elections were a sport, what sport? You said you like sport, right?
Yeah.
So what sport would they be?
I would liken it to soccer. And let me explain football. The explanation is that you have players there who are political parties. You have your Kama referee there, who's the electoral commission, for example, and then you have your VAR, who is your CCMG, right? So yeah,
Who's the ball?
the ball.
Who's the ball?
The ball.
I was like,
and you have
wait for a description of what who the ball is. Like, okay,
I'll come back with that more.
I'm trying to think. One Zambian phrase that will possibly perfectly describe the election season. A Zambian phrase.
Again.
Okay, that's fair enough. What keeps you hopeful about the Zambia's democracy?
Then we are ever growing and lessons to be learned.
Beautiful. I was going to put you on the spot and say, what would be your motto if you were standing? But let me not take you there. Just your last words, really. I want you to do 2 things. So your last word to those that are watching us that have what you said, the responsibility. It could be from the political parties, it could be the citizens, and also I think to your team, because all these that I've mentioned are stakeholders in this, a big thing that we're about to experience. What would be your last word?
Well, I think to the political parties, I think this is a contest, and contests have always 2 outcomes. And if we're not part of the victory, it's just an indication that there could be something more that we could do. And therefore, it's not about taking to the street, but much more introspecting in terms of strategy, but also finding ways of contributing to the growth of our democracy. The voters, of course, they have a responsibility to maintain law and order, and that's very important, but also to not engage in illegal activities. To the team, wow. So we've pretty much worked together for a long time and we've achieved quite a lot. And I still believe we can do this and we do that. And I don't want to promise anything, but yeah, once we get over the line, there's going to be a huge reward for all of us. And a big break, I hope. Like a big vacation and holiday. I can't wait. Out of the country. I can't wait. This is me trying to make you make a promise. I can't wait, but it's on record, so they'll play it back to you. No, let's do a method. It's coming. Wow. You might not be out of the country, but it will count for it. Peter, thank you so much. And also, let me just take time to say thank you to you and the team. I think what CCMG is doing is quite noble for the country. And so please, pat on the back for from you, from us to the team. I shall deliver. Right, this has been the Observer's Chair. My name is Chiresa Mpuira. Remember, this is your front row seat to the future of Zambia's democracy. Bye-bye.